welcome back to Life After Death. I am your returning host, Sean McKinda.
And I am your returning host, David Wozniak.
Last year, we dove into a magical world of Delivery Man and how Vince Vaughn really helped touch each and every one of our lives through this magical movie. Unfortunately, our corporate sponsors found the episode too... I don't want to say ridiculous, because it was not. It was a very serious episode, but I think they did not truly understand the art in a way that connected with them. But we have lobbied for them and attempted our damnedest to get this podcast up and running once again, and so they've decided to give us, on a trial basis, another run at doing Life After Death. And so we return once again this year to bring you Life After Death.
I believe emotional was the word they used when dismissing our work last time. And in fairness, it's hard to not get emotional about these kinds of things, but we're doing our best to give you more objective content, shall we say.
Yes, we'll be distancing ourselves from the emotional feelings that we get when we discuss this month's movie, and instead focus on the true analytical side of things and understanding how it all relates and comes together in a thematic, cohesive manner. So with that, allow me to welcome you to Life After Death, an enlivening podcast of The Lost World Jurassic Park, or, for those of you who might not be familiar, Jurassic Park 2.
A eternally shining classic, at once a follow-up to the acclaimed Spielberg thriller Jurassic Park, known for its gratuitous violence and lack of themes, but also at once a prequel to the Delivery Man,
which we will discuss how it ties into Delivery Man in a few minutes. I did just want to, before we really dive into it, I would like to mention that this is a sequel to the original Jurassic Park. I do not feel that you should watch the original Jurassic Park, given that it is a subpar movie that does not feature Vince Vaughn in any way, shape, or form. And it is also the setup for the remaining Jurassic Park movies, including Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and Jurassic World 2, none of which either focus on Vince Vaughn's character either. And so I would, in general, recommend only watching The Lost World Jurassic Park 2. If you do stumble across some of the other ones, the best option is to turn off the TV as fast as possible, lest you see something that is not Vince Vaughn.
In addition to the lack of Vince Vaughn, the other movies feature a gratuitous amount of violence that, as a Christian, I cannot condone. And really, it's Vince Vaughn that brings the human heart, humanity, and soul to the movie, that elevates the sequel above the rest of the gutter trash populating the Jurassic Park series.
That's not to say, of course, that there is not violence or death within this movie. Of course, given the subject matter, there is to be expected some, but it is all very thematically relevant. It plays into the ideas of the Delivery Man universe incredibly well. I believe we have hinted at this, and before we continue on, we should explain why we have chosen the Lost World, and we've explained that Vince Vaughn is in there, but we believe more than anything that the Lost World to be a continuation of Vince Vaughn's extended Vaughniverse, the universe in which all of Vince Vaughn movies relate back to Delivery Man. And we do have some very compelling arguments to explain how, in fact, that does relate.
We're not arguing from emotion here. We're very calm. We're very rational. We have some pretty compelling evidence to show you the more subversive side to this movie, and I think you'll see it the way we do by the end of it.
Of course. Well, let's begin by talking about our previous experiences with this movie, understanding how we're coming at this, and like what we felt as we were watching it. So, David, please let us know what you feel about Jurassic World: The Lost Kingdom, Jurassic World Park 2.
Well, Sean, as an avid moviegoer, but also a father, I first saw the original Jurassic Park with my kids back in the day, and had to make them leave the theater due to the intense crude violence that occurs within. A man gets eaten on a toilet for no reason at all other than to make a cruel joke.
And of course, the unchristian themes of having dinosaurs come back to life from fossil evidence, which, as we all know, fossils are plants by Satan.
Yes, anyone can tell you that dinosaurs are nothing more than a childish fantasy at best, a satanic hoax at worst. But here comes Jurassic Park, pushing this disingenuous narrative as if it were science. It dares to call itself science fiction. When we here at Life After Death can see through this kind of foolishness. And so I didn't have very high hopes for the Lost World Jurassic Park, needless to say. I did not take my kids this time. But what was interesting to me, what made me ultimately go see it, was the presence of Vince Vaughn. And I know that a good Christian actor like him wouldn't be involved in such a meaningless movie. There has to be some sort of subversive edge to it. And I see the movie and I'm just blown away by the vastly improved special effects over the first one, the cinematography, the characters, all much richer. But mostly, it's the presence of our protagonist, Vince Vaughn, that really sealed the deal for me and tied it all together into a neat little bow. So what do you think, Sean?
Now, this is, of course, about the 15th time I have actually watched this movie. I am very well versed in the Jurassic Park sequel because when it came out, I recognized that it was Vince Vaughn, and I've seen it many, many times. I was indeed touched deeply by the presence of Vince Vaughn within this movie. And his very subversive role as the protagonist, which we will talk about in a few minutes, because I already see some questions about Jeff Goldblum being top billed. But as we all know, Jeff Goldblum is a charlatan hack and does not deserve anywhere near the top billing of this movie.
And I think that they use that common knowledge of him being such a jabroni in order to draw in the masses who enjoyed the senseless, violent spectacle of the first one. He's very emblematic of that film's repulsive values. So to bring him back and give him top billing, it's to sucker you in. It's to fool you into thinking that you're watching another stupid Jurassic Park movie. But very quickly it becomes apparent that that's not what's happening at all. It's a classic maneuver. It's like how Hitchcock got audiences to watch Psycho through the casting of Janet Leigh, famously only to kill her in the first hour of the movie to shock and surprise audiences. So it's a well-worn cinematic technique. Not that Jeff Goldblum actually dies, of course, because that would be antithetical to the ultimate pacifist, life-bringing point of the film.
Of course, it is a very well thought out, well crafted plan, and it plays very well given that Jeff Goldblum, as I said, we'll talk about how Jeff Goldblum really sheds a light on Vince Vaughn as a character, as a person within this movie. So I did, as I was saying, I've seen this movie many, many times, and every time I find something more about this movie that really shows Vince Vaughn's character arc, leading himself to delivery man, to father those hundreds of children, and every time I feel more and more at one with the Vaughniverse. I feel closer and more united with this character that I've come to know and love. This ultimate being. It would not be Christian of me to call him a god, but in my eyes, he is an idol, and I will accept my punishment for idolizing this man.
Now, Sean, before we get too ahead of ourselves, maybe this might come as a controversial statement, but I would say that the movie, while great, is overall not as strong or life-changing as Delivery Man was.
Of course not.
I mean, this is hardly an insult. When the bar is set that high, there's no matching it, clearly. But what we do have is a good movie with good Christian values that uses that subversion of expectations in order to really add depth and breadth to the Vaughniverse as a whole.
Of course, and like this is not, I feel, not intended to rival Delivery Man. Delivery Man is a magnum opus, one that will be passed down through the ages of our lives to no end. Whereas this is more of supplementary material. It's more of it is a prequel, of course, so it's not necessarily important information for Delivery Man, but it does set some stages, set some themes and ideas that come back in Delivery Man in ways that we were just not necessarily prepared for on the first viewing, and it's an important watch, but not a necessary watch, I will say.
I think that's a fair way to summarize it. To describe it as skippable or disposable would be inaccurate, but it's not. I think you need to watch Delivery Man in order to be a moral human being.
Of course, it's to use the Christian Bible as an example. The New Testament is required reading. The Old Testament is, while important and informative for the themes and influences of the New Testament, not as required as a Christian, given its history and the retconning by Jesus of Nazareth in the New Testament.
It just goes to show you, kids, Jesus was the original Marvel.
Not just the original Marvel, of course. He was also the original Delivery Man, delivering us from sin every day.
As is the Son of God, Vince Vaughn.
So I believe we've spoken to our proclivities of Delivery Man and the idea of Jurassic Park: The Fallen Kingdom 2.
There's no need to rehash Delivery Man at this point. Our episode is still up there. You can go listen to it, unless it's too emotional for you, Derek.
Please rein it in. This is a very calm, serious analysis. We don't need to get mad at the insufferable Claude Derek. He is what he is. That is, he will burn in hell for his actions against the Vaughniverse, but
truly, we're out here trying to spread the good word, and we tried to invite him in, but God will cast him out.
So let us dive into the themes, motifs, and ideas, as well as setting up how this does relate into the Delivery Man Vaughniverse, because there's a lot that we need to cover, and with such a limited 6-hour span for this podcast, I don't know that we'll be able to cover it all. So let us begin by discussing how this is a prequel to Delivery Man. And the obvious answer begins from the fact that he has not yet discovered the lives of his hundreds of children. That is the first clue that we really get that he is not within that part of his life yet. This is, in fact, pre-settling down for Vince Vaughn. A lot of his character is truly dripping in irony and looking to set up a lot of things that pay off in the Delivery Man universe. For example, in this movie, he is established to be a womanizing character, going into various forms of like Greenpeace and other peaceful branches of military or other such companies to present opportunities to get with the ladies. And like this is clearly before he has come into his own and discovered who he is as a delivery man. It's a lot of irony in that unto itself.
And I mean, this is one thing you have to keep in mind while watching this, is that you are going to see Vince act in a less than Christian way, but and even in this film itself, you're not going to get all the answers that you necessarily want or need, because Delivery Man is the real journey for the Enlightenment, and this is just the prelude. So you need to understand that. You need to come to terms with the fact that we're all human. Even Vince Vaughn, even with his divine blood, he's still going to make mistakes, and he's not going to get there just by the necessity of this being a prequel.
Of course. And like I think if we want to talk about mistakes, we should mention this right off the bat. I do not think Vince Vaughn should have gone full frontal nudity in this movie. I feel like that was an overstepping. I think it was a very important sign of his vulnerability, but I did not like to look upon, to gaze upon his divine penis. I felt it was uncomfortable. Like it was knowing God in a way that is too intimate for even myself.
I mean, there's at the end of the day, you can argue all you want about subversion of expectation and the presentation of nudity as, making man vulnerable. But this is still a movie for kids. We don't want them to gaze upon the flesh. We don't want them to gaze upon anything. We want them to stay good and moral. So for Vince Vaughn to just expose himself like that to children the world over is a real shock and surprise to me.
I will say the use of the fact that his penis is clearly uncircumcised in this shot is very thematically relevant, though, because at the time he is still hooded. He is still hidden from the world. His true glory has yet to be revealed.
But remember again, this is a prequel, and the circumcision of Vince Vaughn indeed won't happen until the films that come after Delivery Man. So really, how much can we fault the movie for following the canon?
No, of course. This is not the fault of the movie in any way, shape, or form. I was more applauding and lauding it for its ballsy approach to thematic storytelling. But we're not really here to discuss Vince Vaughn's penis. That is more of an incidental side effect of the movie. I would much rather discuss the themes and how the movie presents the Vince Vaughniverse. And I think before we do that, we should really clear the air of why Jeff Goldblum is top billed for this movie. And I believe it becomes pretty clear when you watch the movie and recognize that Jeff Goldblum is phoning in his performance. He is not putting a lot of effort behind his line delivery. It's all very flat and underwhelming. Meanwhile, Vince Vaughn is delivering one of the performances of his lifetime. Like, he's really pushing the emotion out. You can feel every moment that he is on screen, that he is here. He is doing what he needs to do to convey the emotional themes of this movie. Jeff Goldblum, as David was saying, is there to draw the audience in, but he very quickly shows that he is not the focal point of the movie just through his very bad acting within it.
And Vince Vaughn, I mean, you really have to give it to Vince Vaughn that this character is such a rich, compelling character, like Saul from the Bible, a bad man eventually shown the light, but he allows himself to be really honest and really vulnerable here with just how disgusting a lot of his actions truly are. I respect Vince Vaughn as an actor and also as a character for being able to plunge those uncomfortable depths and really get under my skin and make me
hold it together. This is not what this podcast is about. This is all analysis.
It's all analysis. Very serious, very objective.
Very objective. It's all, just take a deep breath. We're all here. We're all together. This is Vince Vaughn.
So in conclusion, Jeff Goldblum is a fraud.
Of course. He's a hack fraud. He does not know what he's doing. He is a charlatan, but he is a charlatan that works in favor of our Lord and Savior Vince Vaughn. And Jesus Christ, of course.
God rest his soul.
So now that we have established how Vince Vaughn has supplanted Jeff Goldblum as the true protagonist, the hidden protagonist of Jurassic Park 2,
cucked him out of it, I dare say, as my favorite places to hang out on the internet have shown me these good Christian spaces online.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stormfront, for all you've brought to us. So let us dive into more of the story and actual themes that the movie seeks to present itself with. I think the first bit of irony and the first bit of thematic, relevance that we need to look at is how Vince Vaughn is ultimately the plan B in this movie. The devil's pill, if you will. As we all know, Plan B is the form of I don't want to say birth control because that sounds too soft of a term.
It's an abortion pill.
The abortion medicine that is sold after young, anti-Christians are copulating the night of, and they do things that they shouldn't, and it's very upset. And
Calm, Sean, calm.
We're here.
Now,
We're here.
just take breath. Think about the fact that every single one of these people are going to hell for murder.
Right. Of course.
And calm yourself.
We see as Vince Vaughn plays the role of the scientist's Plan B, very much playing into Big Pharma's hands in these moments, that he is, still in his infancy of finding the Christian way of spreading your seed as much as possible. And so for the scientist, the Big Pharma, to come in and tell him to be the Plan B, to put a stop to all of the menace that is the dinosaurs, is truly an ironic situation. As we see, Vince Vaughn eventually grows to be the seed giver and
The life bringer.
the seed giver and the life bringer, of course. And so for him to be the Plan B truly is the beginning of a very important character arc for Vince Vaughn and ultimately David Wozniak, who, as you can tell, my co-host has taken the name of. It's very important for him to grow in this way. He goes from a tool of death, a tool of underscoring everything that is wrong with this world, to being the bringer, the life bringer, the seed giver, and truly growing as a character, as someone who is a good Christian male, as opposed to this, devil's pill deliverer.
I will say that this moment when he calls himself the Plan B, you can still see the bits of goodness shining through in him that still
The
need to be
regret
unearthed.
is palpable in the moment.
And indeed, he does try to use his actions to help the dinosaurs that are in all around the base camp, and particularly in their basement. The basement. Yes.
No,
that
please calm down. There's no reason to get so feisty.
Oh, I'm not getting feisty. I'm just saying that that in the movie, of course, that there's something in the basement that needs help.
Now, of course, this is more metaphorical, as the dinosaurs are nowhere near a basement. They are, in fact, out in the open getting rained on. Of course, demonstrably of the sadness of the situation. There is, in fact, no basement whatsoever that needs to be looked into within this movie. It is entirely a metaphor. So we shall move past this point and not dwell on it any further. Just acknowledging that Hammond using Vince Vaughn as Plan B is truly an irony for his character, and the beginning of an arc that pays off in such a wonderful, wonderful manner in Delivery Man. And I do believe that, like, using Vince Vaughn as Hammond's delivery man of the Plan B is in more ways than one a foreshadowing of what's to come. It's a brilliant stroke of just genius by the filmmakers, and indeed Vince Vaughn, who is the writer, director, and producer of Jurassic Park 2.
A real step up from the talentless Steven Spielberg of the last movie.
Of course, and for whatever reason, they do go back to Steven Spielberg for the rest of these movies, and it does not make any sense. Steven Spielberg is clearly, like Jeff Goldblum, a hack and charlatan, and does not deserve the respect that he has been given by the filmmaking community.
Indeed.
So let us continue our journey through Jurassic Park 2, and let us take the next stop at potentially, barring Vince Vaughn's actual penis, the most phallic object in the movie. Of course, I'm referring to the gun of the hunter who only wishes to shoot one of the devil dinosaurs, the lies that this movie perpetrates. Um, and this is the one wish of the hunter throughout the entirety of the movie, the one that it's his ultimate goal, but is ultimately thwarted. And I think this is a very important moment because Vince Vaughn preemptively steals the ammo from his gun. Like he leaves the shells, but the bullets themselves are removed from the casing. It really does set up the idea that Vince Vaughn is the man who steals his ammo and is in fact the only man who may shoot his load for the Vaughniverse.
It really foreshadows his role as the life bringer. And I mean, and especially since the hunter with his death, I mean, it just proves that if you're not bringing life, you're dead weight.
Exactly. And if you are attempting to stifle life, to kill life, you in turn do deserve to die. That is the stance of pro-life. Like, that is what this means. Like, if you are a death bringer, you deserve to die. And there's nothing more pro-life than that.
What I find especially interesting about this very pro-life, very Christian moment is the numbers that are etched onto the casing. I find it especially interesting that the directors would include the numbers 511 on the barrel of the shotgun,
which of course refers to minute 511 from the Delivery Man movie, in which Vince Vaughn says, "Lo, thou shalt not kill dinosaurs, for they are my children."
See, I think that is a very interesting connection that you're making, but within the text of this movie, I find it interesting that he goes east, and that this ends up being a very good avenue for his enlightenment.
Yes, the multitude of symbolisms within this movie that play, not just because they show up repeatedly and are just, there is a large number of them, but in fact are a continuous references to multiple elements of the Vaughniverse and how he lives his life, and the methods that he wishes to impart upon us all is deep and wonderful, and I highly respect everything that goes into it. And there are just a plethora of little moments like that, just small etchings, small nods to various Bible verses. Of course, we've got John 3:16 written on the actual barrel of the gun in a very, in-your-face reference to the good Lord's passage.
John Hammond's name clearly indicates the book of John and all the lessons within.
Exactly, John 3:16, John Hammond. It's all tied together, and that is the true brilliance of the Vaughniverse, of course. Shall we talk about true birth after this now?
Yes, I think we need to go into the finer points, the finer details of what it really means to be born in a Vaughniverse movie.
Exactly. So let us talk about the multitude of symbolic births within this movie. Mostly, and I would like to get your opinion on what you feel this means, but they do seem to be from vehicles. A lot of times there are scenes where a linosaur smashes into a vehicle and a human being comes out through a window on the other side. Of course, the windows are, a very clear symbolism for the ladies' no-no zone and where babies arrive from. And the dinosaur literally smashing the car, the colloquial millennial term for engaging in marital sex being to smash. The allegory is clearly there. Like the metaphor is complete and understanding. I'm just confused as to why a woman as a whole would be, I apologize. I do believe I just discovered this, in that women are merely vehicles for birth.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Like, Sean, you really you really hit the nail on the head of the truth.
I do appreciate, however, like that we then allow the Linosaurs to truly be emblematic of the male penis, because as the vehicles for children are the literal vehicles, to have men smash those with their huge like phallic shaped dinosaurs is a very stroke of genius, and like I feel like I'm a little ashamed that I did not understand the metaphor soon enough.
I mean, for me, it was honestly quite obvious. I mean, you have dinosaurs. They're big, they're ugly, they're monstrous,
They're
they're
hard.
horrible, they're hard, and yet also necessary. And all of these qualities apply to the male penis in the act of smashing, as the kids say nowadays.
Of course, and so like the subsequent birth of a human through the vehicle window, the vehicle no square, is very it's effective. Very evocative of things that are yet to come.
And I mean, and that's the sort of dark, somber introspection that The Lost World brings, is that you cannot have the ultimate good of birth without the ultimate evil of and
I'm
the
sorry,
fact
that was a little rough for our younger listeners. It is, of course, we are referring to the act of mommy daddy smack smack.
yeah, we'll give an age appropriate rating for this episode. If Derek wants to, he could even censor the particular word, put in that bleep and make it more palatable to innocent Christian ears.
Of course, of course, of course.
So I mean, and this is the irreconcilable core of the meaning of life. Is this the problem of evil is that we can only define it through the existence of good, through the grace of God. And it's Vince Vaughn who has come here with his Vaughniverse in order to show us the way, in order to tie everything together. It's like poetry. It's sort of, they rhyme.
Of course, of course, of course. Shall we talk about where Vince Vaughn disappears from the movie? Because I feel like this is one of the more interesting parts thematically.
It's a controversial move, a bold move, in that Vince Vaughn, our hero, our anti-hero perhaps. He's still Saul. He's not Paul yet. But the man who we know will become Delivery Man just leaves the movie for the final half hour or so. And I found this really difficult to wrestle with. I had to watch it again, and it was only on my second viewing that I understood the true subversive genius of what was going on here.
There is some very plain language speak explaining why he does leave, but it is still tough to hear. And we'll come back to the plain language speak, because I feel like it will work as a final nail in this theory's coffin. In that, Vince Vaughn has spent his time on this island of Linosaurs, and he has witnessed just a immense number of deaths, and a lot of these people did in fact deserve to die. They are scientists of, a lie, a true horrible act, looking to continue to enable Satan and lie to the general public. But like, he still has witnessed a just inordinate number of deaths of human lives, or subhuman lives, of course, in this instance.
I mean, there's with so much evil going on, you would think that at some point, any moral character would have called the police. And nobody in this movie is calling the police.
Well, that is covered, because there is no phone that can reach the police within this movie. They mention repeatedly that their satellite phone does not connect to anything, and that there is no way to reach help within this movie. So
I mean, it's a construct that I'm willing to accept. In the fiction of the film, that we have this dead phone connection, we have the easy out of our boys in blue not available, but I just really want to stress, kids, that if you see something or know of something immoral in reality, you should most definitely call the police.
Of course, there is always this possibility that the police will not be able to find what you are calling for, and so nothing might ever come of it. But that's neither here nor there. That is a conversation for another time, of course. I think what's more important to talk about right now is after Vince Vaughn has witnessed, all these deaths, and they all get on a helicopter to head back to San Francisco. And at this point, Vince is never seen from again. Of course, San Francisco is where one of the bigger dinosaurs get out and continues to consume the caustic liberals that live in California to rain down a holy justice of irony, given science has created what is then destroying those who believe in science. It's truly a deep metaphor. But Vince Vaughn at this point is nowhere to be seen. He has left. He has ascended from this island, from this plot, this premise that no longer needs him to save them. He is beyond that need. He is coming unto himself. From what we can tell, he seems to return to New York, which is where we find him in Delivery Man. There may be some interstitial adventures between the Jurassic Park 2 movie and Delivery Man, but he does seem to return to New York. And I think his final utterance of the movie, saying, "I must repopulate the earth with those who are good," is truly foretelling of the movie.
And I think that it's I maybe have a slightly different read on the character as you at the moment, because I think that it's particularly important that when we see him starting in Delivery Man, he's working as a butcher, a murderer, a bringer of death, and that seems again out of character, which is why this isn't a movie of enlightenment. This is the steps taken needed to put you on the road to enlightenment. And really, the fact that Vince Vaughn, that he hadn't been there, that he hadn't done all these things in order to prevent the tragedies and the waste of human lives, and not doing his part to bring life as the life bringer, it really shows that he is a butcher, at least right now. But only by following the grace of God can he be saved. Only by spreading his seed, his holy seed, can anyone find happiness.
Of course. That is a very legitimate read of the movie, and I think one that would be worth further discussion of. Perhaps we shall return at some point to discuss just the ending, because I feel like there are hours of content within just that ending alone. But I am concerned about dedicating the remainder of this podcast to just discussing the ending, when there is other parts that I imagine that you would like to discuss. Like, is there anything else beyond the ending that really stood out to you as emblematic of the Vince Vaughniverse?
Well, there is one particular moment. You're right, of course, and that the ending deserves its own mini-series, not just one podcast. We certainly can't fit it into the last 20 minutes or so. But I wanted to talk about Eddie, Vince Vaughn's foolish manservant, who goes and gets himself killed. He gets torn in half by two dinosaurs, and I think that I don't want to show my hand too much here, but I think that this is a strong condemnation for the evils of homosexuality. There are very many, finger quotes, gay moments between Eddie as he kind of longingly stares at Vince Vaughn. And I mean, who isn't longingly staring at Vince Vaughn? But
no homo.
You have to keep it under control, Eddie. And so, I mean, if we've already established that the dinosaurs are two large phallic symbols, then surely there's some significance in them joining together like that in one man and tearing him apart and punishing him for his great sin.
Truly, the split of good that lies within every homosexual and the devilish undertelling of homosexuality. Like he is split in twain right at the pelvis, which is where homosexuality stems from, of course. Who among us have not looked at their own penis and recognized that it is just beautiful,
But also evil.
evil. It's so evil. Let's not beat around the bush. It is a tempting, tantalizing evil. But Eddie punishes him, is punished for it, because he gives in to these latent feelings. Those that say that homosexuality is natural and okay, and everyone falls somewhere on like the spectrum of homosexuality and everything like that. That is a lie perpetrated once again by Big Pharma, a lying set of people who are looking to underscore just how ruled by Satan the world is. And so for him to get ripped in twain truly shows this duality and like the internal struggle that we all must deal with, when in fact homosexuality is just bad. It's bad. It's bad.
Very, very bad.
I do think that we've really kind of covered a lot of the core tenets of this movie, though. Would you agree? Is there anything else that you feel that we should bring up before we wrap up?
I just wanted to say that I love this movie more than I love my own children.
That is the correct opinion to have, of course.
I think that you'll never find a stronger condemnation of the evils of Big Pharma and the deep state that we call science, and this presentation of the human phallus as a destructive, horrible, evil, disgusting thing is something that every child should have burned into their psyche, that they should feel this shame every time they look upon themselves, if only to counteract the natural latent desires that you have so eloquently stated are there.
Of course. It is a beautiful, beautiful evil, but one that we must repress. And so I think that this is a great place to wrap this up. So as always, I've been your host, Sean McKinda. You can, just let us know if you enjoyed this. We'll let Derek know. You can tweet at Derek, and inform him that this is in fact a great series and one that must continue and should not be supplanted by usual material, because this is in fact this is the true heart of our podcast. So.
And I've been your host, David Wozniak. I've been your host, David Wozniak. No, that's not my name. That's not
David.
My name. My name is not David Wozniak. No, it's Jackson
David
Keller.
Wozniak.
That's
David, please.
That's my name.
David?
I'm Jackson Keller.
David,
I'm in
I
the
will
basement
come
at
down there.
511 East Avenue.
David.
He's got me handcuffed to the walls. He's got me
David.
handcuffed to some device. He's making me watch Vince Vaughn movies and read Bible verses with him all day. Help! Call for help, please! Please get him over here, please! I'm begging.
Unfortunately, David, the call has dropped out at this point, and David is no longer on the call. So we'll wrap it up here by myself. If you have any more questions about anything that we do, please tweet at Derek, because Derek is our manager and is the only person who actually knows how to work the quote-unquote internet, which I still don't fully trust. So thank you for joining us for Life After Death, the Life Inning podcast. I will see you next time.